Rambam Chovel uMazzik Perek Daled, Chapter 4, Halal Aleph. Hanegef es ha'isha v'yotzi yiladel. A person who hits a woman and causes her to miscarry. Alpha Pishlin is Kavan, even though he hit the woman, even if her injury was caused unintentionally, Chayv Shalom, he has to pay the Mevalodis, the Baal, Benezek V'tzar L'isha. He has to pay the woman's husband the value of the fetus and the woman for the injury and the pain. How is the payment of the fetus assessed? We evaluate how much the woman would be worth before she gave birth and how much would it be worth after she gave birth. And that's the difference between the two figures should be given to her husband. If the husband dies, after she miscarried, the assessment should be given to the Yersha. If the woman was hit after her husband died and she miscarried, the assessment of the fetus should be given to the woman. The woman who miscarried was married to a ger and the person injured her during the ger's lifetime, he has to pay the assessment to the husband. But after the ger dies, she gets the assessment of the fetus. If the woman was a maidservant or a goy, if the woman was a maidservant or a goya at the time of conception and was freed or converted before the accident took place, the assessment of the fetus belongs to her. Hey, if a person hits a woman and she miscarries and dies, he is not chayav for payment, even if he struck her unintentionally. It says, if there will not be a fatal injury, it must certainly be punished financially. Based on the pattern of Tashlumim. Torah does not distinguish between unintentional and intentional conduct with regard to act punishable by Beis Din and freed the perpetrator from financial liability in all instances. When the person intended to strike the woman, whenever he intended to hit his friend, but instead struck the woman, though she dies, since he killed her without kavanah, this is considered a matter that does not involve capital punishment, and he's chayav for the assessment of the fetus. When a person hits father and mother but does not draw blood, he's chayav in these five assessments. If, God forbid, they actually make a chabura, so then they don't have to pay because he gets punishable by execution. We already explained here does not distinguish between unintentional and intentional conduct with regard to an act punishable by execution of the Beis Din and free the perpetrator from financial liability in all instances. And famous question with regard to injury causing injury on Shabbos, a person should ask, personally, who causes injury is considered to be performing destructive activity. And one who performs a destructive activity on Shabbos is not chayav for execution. So, the answer is because since this person is satisfying his sahara by injuring his friend, he's considered to be performing a constructive activity. So he's performing an act that's punishable by execution, therefore he's not chayav for a financial penalty. When a person injures a friend in Kippur, he's chayav to pay compensation, even though he did so intentionally. Anybody gets malchus and someone gets malchus and doesn't have to pay, you don't give both. So although this is the general rule, an exception is made with regards to a person who injures a friend. For the Torah specifically stated that a person who injures a friend should pay compensation. He shall pay unemployment compensation. A person who injures the Eved Kanani what he owns is not chayav for any penalty. Chovel u'Eved Ivri shalei chayav b'kul chutz m'nashavas. If he injures a Eved Ivri on his own, he's chayav for all assessments with the exception of unemployment compensation. Achil u'Eved Kanani shel Chovel Rabbi shel Eved Neitach Hamisha Dvarim. When a person injures a Eved Kanani belonging to a friend, the owner of the injured servant receives the 5 assessments. Even if he gave him powerful medication that caused the servant's pain but healed him quickly, the owner is entitled to payment for all medical expenses. Yud Aleph, Kol Eved Shield, so the Chayers for Dan, the Yid gets Shikr, the other end like Knas. However, a servant has been freed, but his bill of release has not been given to him. The penalty granted to the owner, servant killed by the ox, is not paid because of him. If others injure him, he cannot collect the money for himself because he's not totally a free man yet. But the owner cannot collect the money because he no longer owns him. For this reason, if the owner knocks out one of the servant's teeth and then blinds his eye, he has to free him because of his tooth. He's not required to pay him because of the eye. If, however, the servant seizes the assessment that would be due to him, don't take it away. When a servant has been half freed, he must work for the master one day and may work for himself the other day. The halacha is that if such a servant was embarrassed by a person or caused him pain or was gored by an ox, so the master is entitled to his day, and if it took place in the day when he works for himself, he's entitled to his payment. When a person injures a Hebrew servant belonging to another person, he's chayav for all 5 assessments. Land should be purchased with money, and the servant's master is entitled to profits. When the servant is freed, the land is released from his owner's control. If the servant was injured in a way that does not impair his work at all, the tip of his ear or the tip of his nose was cut off, the entire payment should be given to the servant, and the owner is not entitled to the benefit. Now, when a person injures a girl below the age of maturity who is not his own daughter, if the injures reduce the money her father would receive for being Mekadosh, the assessment should be given to the father. Unemployment assessment should be given to her father for her wages belong to him, and the money received for selling her as a servant belongs to him. These belong to her. Injuries do not reduce the money he would give for consecrating her. This person injures his own daughter has to pay pain, medical attention, and embarrassment. That's what the Bible about first injures a married woman, unemployment benefit and the medical assessment should be given to her husband. With regards to shame and damages, the halacha is if the damage is plainly evident, in other words, he injured the money, face, her neck, or hands, or his arm, the third is given to her, and the third is given to her husband. If the damage are concealed places, the third is given to her husband, the third is given to her. The assessment for the husband should be given to him immediately. The assessment of the woman should be used to purchase land for the husband is entitled to the profits. When others injure her, obviously, if the husband hurts her, then everything goes to her. If she desires to give the money to another person, she may, because the husband must pay her medical expenses. He pays for all the medical expenses. When a person injures his wife through bia, he's chayav for the damages. Yud Ches. when a woman is injures her husband, in a case where he had added an amount above the minimum of the marriage contract, if the husband dies, we require him to sell the rights as additional amount to her husband for the price she would receive. If her husband is entitled to collect the damages of these funds. Gave it. If he desires, he may divorce her and collect the damages from the entire sum of the money. This is, of course, when a woman injures her husband. Person can't be with the wife 1 second without a ksuba. Husband desires, he may have a note written obligated her to her damages. He may divorce her, collect the amount due to him for the money due with the ksuba. A person injures his sons who have attained maturity. If they are not dependent on their livelihood, he must pay them the damages immediately. If they are below the age of maturity, he should purchase land for them with the money due to them with the damages. And they are entitled to the benefits. Same Allah applies if they're injured by others. The father injures sons who are dependent on him for their livelihood, he's not chayiv. This applies whether or not they're above maturity. If others injure due to them, the person who causes the injury must compensate them immediately if they're above maturity. If they're below maturity, damage should not be used for to purchase land until the profits until they reach maturity, at which time the property becomes theirs without limitation. Encounter with a chershet v'katan is undesirable. If a person injures them, he is chayav, but if they injure other person, they are pater. Even if the deaf mute gains the ability to speak and hear, a mentally competent person attains competency, minor comes to age, they are not obligated to pay for the injuries that caused previously. At the time they caused the injuries, they are not fully competent. Encounter with a servant or maid woman, married woman is undesirable. For a person injures them, he is chayav, but if they injure another person, they are not chayav to pay. He must however pay afterwards if the woman is divorced or her husband dies and the servant is freed. They're considered as a creditor as no resources, and they're chayav to pay if they become wealthy. Last halacha, the servant belonging to a man is considered as his own person. An animal is one of his possessions. Person places a burning coal on the heart of a servant, like their friend that causes him to die, or he pushes him to the seer at the fire from which the servant could ascend. While the servant fails to do so and died, instead the person who causes his death is not obligated to pay compensation. If however he does so, this is an animal belonging to a friend, it would be considered as if he placed the coal in a garment and burned, in which case is chayav to pay. Chovel uMazzik, Chapter 5. Aleph, also the Adam lachbil ben ba'asmi ben bechaver. A person is not allowed to inflict injury upon anyone, whether himself, whether his friend. Not only a person who causes injury, but anyone who hits in strife an upright Jewish person, whether a minor or adult, whether a man or a woman, is over a negative commandment. As the Torah says, Lo Yosef, do not continue. Hashem Lo Yosef, La Akise, to hit him. You can learn from here that the Torah warns us against adding to the blows due to a sinner, how much more so with regards to a tzaddik. This week's parsha, even even forbidden to raise one's hand up against a friend. It's also even if he did not hit him, he just lifted up his hand, he's considered a rasha. A person hits a friend with a blow that does not warrant a pruto, to be paid to recompensate, he still gets malchus. If there's no financial penalty to be exacted for the issue of the negative commandment. Even if a person hits a servant belonging to a friend with a blow that does not warrant a pruta, to be paid, I should receive malchus. Knas kost chachamim, Adela Shaitan Balazvish, and Nechman Nama Vrishpe, when Kidis Chefetch, is a Chovel Bei Chovel Zevenetel Mashtole. Chachamim imposed the penalty of foolish and violent men and gave a person who was injured the following privilege. His word is accepted, and he takes an oath while holding the Kidis Chefetch that another person caused him such and such injury, and he is awarded the appropriate damage. As long as there's aid in the case of Sahish Aid, two people testify that the injured person, entered the domain of the accused hole and left after being injured, but they did not see the injury being inflicted. Although the accused claims to have been inflicted the injury, not to inflict the injury, since the injured person claims that he did, the injured person is given the prerogative of taking a shua and collecting the money. When the injury was located in a place where the person could have inflicted it upon himself, or a third person who was there when the injured person could have instructed to strike him, then he's chayiv. If, however, a third party was not present, injury was in a place that the injured could not have inflicted upon himself, in other words, he was bitten between his shoulders and the like, he may collect the appropriate payment without an oath. A person who caused injury and admits causing it, he is chayav to pay all 5 assessments, for there are witnesses that the injured party entered the accused domain of sound body at the time of the fighting and departed with an injury. If, however, there are no witnesses, they're all injured party states the person injured me and the accused admits so, he's not chayav for the assessment for damages of the pain, he's however chayav for the assessment for unemployment, embarrassment, and medical attention because of his own admission. He just says nishbash says. Why does a person pay these 3 assessments on the basis of his own admission? This is a moment, not a knas. For if he does not reimburse the injured person for them, he will have caused them to forfeit the money spent on medical attention. And the basis, it was when he admitted before the court that he injured the party. And the injury is caused that a person has not caused any embarrassment. It is his admission before the court that embarrasses him. We can learn from here that there's no difference with regard to the embarrassment assessment, whether the assessment is due to him because he caused the person to be embarrassed. The presence of others is due to him because he made acknowledgement, and the presence of others in the embarrassment. Because therefore the person is chayav from the embarrassment because of his own statement. Person who damages a friend's property cannot be compared to one who damages a physical property. The person who damages a friend's property pays him when he's obligated to pay him, he receives atonement. A person injures his friend, a physical person, paying him the 5 assessments, it's not alone sufficient to generate atonement. Even if the person who caused injuries, he brings all the rams and the voice, he cannot generate atonement, nor is he forgiven until he asks the person mechila. Zayin Russell nechbeli yisachzori v'le'im chilel ein zederech yisrael al kir shabigin shman achev no scham le pam shin shni v'yada shav mecheti v'nichem al rosi im chilei. So for a person who suffered injury to be cruel and not to forgive the one who caused the injury, this is not the course of behavior of the descendant of the Yid. Instead, since the person who caused the injury asks and pleads him for forgiveness once or twice, and he knows that he did tshuva for the sin, he regrets his evil, he should forgive him. Whoever hastes to grant forgiveness is praiseworthy and is regarded favorably by the Chachamim. There's another difference between the damage of an individual physical person and his property. A person tells his friend, blind my eye or cut off my arm, or he's not chayav, he's chayav for the assessment. He will not be chayav, he is chayav for the 5 assessments. The far as that is well known that the person is not really desired. If a person tells a friend, tear my garment or break my drug, he will not be chayav, he's not chayav. However, did not permit him to damage his property, but did not make it deny that he would be chayiv. I'll get to pay for damage. When the person entrusts the article, the person destroyed them as a watchman. He borrowed them or trusted them for safety in such a situation. If the owner told the watchman to break or rip it, and the watchman did so, the watchman is chayiv to pay for the damages, unless he owns explicitly stipulated that the watchman is not held chayiv. However, the owner of the article tells a friend, take the utensils and break it, take the garment and rip it, then he's potter. Person tells a friend, breaking utensils belong to so and so, and you will not be chayiv. A listener listens to these instructions, listener is chayiv. It's like as he tells him, blind so and so, and you'll not be chayiv. The person who caused the damage is chayiv to pay. So in relation to the person who gave him the instructions is considered to be his partner in the transgression. He is a wicked person. For he caused a blind man to stumble and supported a person who committed transgression. Chovel uMazzik, Chapter 6. Perek Shishi. Aleph. Hamazik mamen chaveda chayv l'shalom nezik shalom ben shaya shegi ben shaya anas aru kamezit. Person who damages the property belonging to a friend is obligated to pay the full extent of the damages, whether he did so unintentionally or beyond his or honest or amazed. Ketzat has a nafal menagag v'sharvas hakelim. A person fell off a roof and broke a utensil or tripped while he was walking, fell on a keli and broke his chayiv to the full extent. A person who strikes an animal will pay for the damage. There's no difference in a shig and a mezit. Similar price that the person who caused the damage should pay for applies whether one kills an animal belonging to a friend, breaks a utensil, tears his garments, or cuts down crops of trees applied. The when does this happen? When the damage is done in a domain belonging to the person who possessions or damage Hilchos uMazzik. If the damage was done in a domain belonging to the person who caused the damage, then he's not chayiv unless it was bezadan on b'shkong, then he's potter. If both of them were present in the rishos belonging to a third party with permission or without permission, and one unintentionally damaged property belonging to the other, the person who caused the damage is not chayiv. Person was climbing a ladder and the rung of the ladder broke under him and it fell and caused damage. If it wasn't tight and then it fell, then it's chayiv. If it was tightly fit and strong enough to bear the person's weight and it slipped under the place and it rotted, then it's chayiv. This only applies when the damage took place. If the damage took place in the domain belonging to the person whose possessions were damaged. If the damage takes place in the domain belonging to the person who causes the damage, he's not chayiv unless he intentionally causes the damage. Hey, Arishvila Chatzer Chavedik Kadiyayim Shem Nafili Ichnisim B'Shusahil Uleikiva Lov Balachatzer Lishmar Zenichas Yitzigadaku Choshi Shtamer Benakadim B'Chnisosi B'Tzozer Zupatar Leim. Another person filled the quarter belonging to a friend with the jugs or wine and oil. The owner of the quarter may enter and leave ordinary manner. If any of the jugs breaks and enters or leaves, he's not chayav for them. This applies even if the jugs were brought with permission of the owner of the quarter, as long as the owner of the quarter did not accept responsibility for watching them. However, the owner of the quarter broke the jugs intentionally, he's chayav to pay for them. This applies even if the jugs were brought in without the permission of the owner of the quarter. If the when one ox climbs on top of the other ox with the intention of killing the domain belonging to the other ox, and the owner of the lower ox pulls his ox away to save it, thus causing the upper ox to fall and die, the owner of the lower ox is not chayav. This applies regardless of whether the attack was a tamar or wood. Zayin, as a chayiv. When the owner of the lower ox pushes the upper ox and it dies, it could have pulled one ox away so that the attacking ox would not be pushed violently. The yochel l'shom there is a potter. When two people were walking in a shusharam, if one approached carrying a jug and the other approached carrying a beam, and the person the jug was broken by the other beam, so the owner of the beam is not possible. It's not chayiv. The svara is that they both have permission to walk on the domain. If the owner of the beam was walking ahead of the owner of the jug afterwards, and the jug was broken on the beam, the owner of the beam is not chayiv. Then he will be chayiv. So the owner of the beam warned the owner of the jug and told him to stand still, and the owner of the beam is not chayiv. Obviously, he's the balachavis, shvatarit kedarki. If the owner of the beam stood still to adjust the burden, he's considered walking and he's not chayiv. This applies even if he failed to warn the owner of the jug, he is a tarit. If he, let's say, stood to be masak in his pekel, even if he didn't warn the balakeda, his chayiv. Same applies if one proceeds while carrying a lamp, but the other carrying a flax. The test. Two people walking the shusharam. One was running, one was walking. One was walking, and the one again. Two people were walking in the shusharam. One of them was running, and one of them was walking. One was injured, but the other unintentionally. The one who was running is chayav for he's departing from the norm. If it's ben hashmoshes, then it's bottom rishus. He has permission to run at the time, so the Shabbos will enter when he is ready to accept. If both individuals are running and one injured the other, then he's pat afilu b'shayim. Echad uMazzik b'yad yeshazak even a yonachetz v'hizik boy yeshapater mayim achaved yalakilim hizik yesharok no hizik b'kicha v'nei v'yeshalchem b'kicha tzek uMazzik b'yad hem tilda shel adam. No difference whether a person injures a friend with his hand, injures him by throwing a stone or shooting an arrow, opens a current or water on a person or utensil and damages him or them, or spits or sneezes and causes damage to the spittle or mucus while is being propelled by the power. All these are tilda shel adam. If however the spittle of the mucus comes to rest on the ground afterwards, the person slips on them, the person who spat or sneezes chayiv. The British called calls the every obstacle is considered a tilde of bear. Yud Aleph Leitish Shayamaki b'patash v'yosek is b'tachas b'patash v'yizikar is a chayiv k'mishazarek even echetz. A blacksmith who is beating with a hammer or on an anvil causes a spark to fly from beneath the hammer, and the spark causes damage. the black is chayiv. He's a chayiv. If a builder is a contractor to tear down a wall, cracks a stone, or other damages, is chayiv. They fall because of the blows. He's a chayiv. This is considered like shooting arrows, causing damage. Chakevish behemoth. If they fall person who holds underwater an animal belonging to a friend or animal fell into water and prevented it from descending and thus caused it to die of the water, or he left in the sun and restricted its movement so that he could not find shade until the sun killed it. All of these, he is going to be chayil shalom. Two people killed an animal together or break a utensil together, damages are divided between them. If ruled in the following manner concerning the liability in the situation as described. 5 people placed their 5 burdens on an animal and did not die. 6 person came and placed the burden upon it and did die. If the animal was walking while carrying the previous burden and stood and did not walk when the last person placed his burdens, that last person is chayiv. If at the outset the animal was not walking, the last person is not chayiv. It's not known whether or not the animal was walking. The 6 people should share the damages equally. I'll be sure the same thing is person sitting on the bench, the last guy who sits on it is chayiv. If you wouldn't come there, it would never break. They all sat down at the same time and it broke. They're chayiv. Last halacha. Chum divided the liability for the damage of the situation of a man and an ox combined to push into a cistern a person, utensil, an ox. That was disqualified for use as a carpet. If the person and the animal pushed into a cistern was injured or died, or the utensil was broken, all three, the person who pushed, the person of the ox, and the owner of the cistern, are chayiv, and the damages should be divided amongst them in the following manner. With regard to the payment of the offspring which were aborted because of the fall, and for the 4 assessments other than damage, the man is chayiv, and the owner of the ox and the owner of the cistern are not chayiv. With regard to the atonement fine and the fine of the 30 shekalim for killing a servant, the owner of the ox is chayiv, and the man and the owner of the cistern is not chayiv. With regard to the destruction of utensils and the death of an animal that was disqualified as a korban, the man and the owner of the ox are chayiv, and the owner of the cistern is mutter.